the atmosphere basically with gravity, and which I do believe in. But I think that since gravity, I think it's like strong and weak nuclear, electromagnetic, and then gravity. And there's some, depending on who you speak to, they'll be like, "Oh no, we got it figured out," but like that we only like partially understand gravity. So I was thinking about basically, I think that temperature. I think temperature plays a huge role in, along with gravity and the like the magnetosphere. But temperature comes into play when it comes to like holding the gravity to the globe, I assume. Just because it's such a huge, like, think about it, dude. Think about it. It's like what Kelvin. I don't know what the range is from like the average temperature on Earth is like 30 degrees Celsius, or somebody said. I can't remember. I had looked it up, but it's like a reasonable temperature that human beings could survive without dying of exposure or whatever. But then you have like this huge drop in the temperature, right? And it kind of like could help to hold up. Because if you think about how the layers of the atmosphere probably like formed and evolved over time, it started out like maybe lower, right? I know, I can see your face, but and it's literally just a thought that I had, right? So like you got like 0 Kelvin or whatever like closeness to that is, in proximity to the sun. But you would develop layers of the atmosphere like that because you have these inert gases in the atmosphere, and so after, like, we're in the troposphere, but then as it goes up, like that next layer of the atmosphere is warm at the top and cold at the bottom, and it keeps going out into the exosphere that way. And I think that has to do with temperature a little bit. I don't know, like, because, and it just came from me thinking about it, and like, no, like gravity is a weak force. So it's not going to completely hold these inert molecules to the surface of the Earth at that proximity by itself. That's all. And because like without the magnetosphere, we know that the atmosphere will be blown away by solar winds. So I'll just run that by you. Like I don't have any, but I just, because it's something I've been thinking about. And I was like, I feel like there's something to that, but like I don't have the academics, or I haven't talked to any physicist or anybody who could like really back that up in any way. So you're like probably the closest thing to somebody who could actually, at least think about that and be like, I see where you're coming from, but no, or whatever type of thing. But anyway.
Yeah, no, temperature doesn't assist in the Earth being able to maintain its atmosphere. It's not magnetosphere, it's our magnetic field, like big difference,
right,
whatever.
Right. Well, that's what I meant.
But
That's just what I call
it. That helps a lot, but now the mass of Earth and its gravitational pull holds the atmosphere down. It would be interesting because Mars used to have an atmosphere, because Mars used to have weather and oceans and flowing water, and we think that the reason Mars lost its atmosphere is because Mars really doesn't have a magnetic field hardly at all anymore, and so the solar wind blew away its atmosphere. Now Earth is a lot bigger, so how much longer could Earth hold on to an atmosphere if its magnetic field was gone or something like that? That's a really interesting question. I don't know, but no, temperature really doesn't.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
so what do you want to talk about with evolution?
It's just the KT line, basically, right? And then also the raising of the oceans, the raising of the sea level over the past, or from like 14,000 years ago. Have you heard of Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson doing or having this theory about the impact theory and everything? So you know about that? So
a little bit, yeah.
Okay, so basically that, and so just because we basically live like in the high ground now, right? As like the entirety of humanity, like it exposed the amount of land that was exposed before that rising of the sea level was approximately like Russia, and the equivalent of Russia and China's square mileage over, distributed.
I've heard North America, but
well, either way, that's a pretty
close.
Substantial amount of land. It's a substantial amount of land that was distributed respectively across all these different shorelines, right? And so about 500 meters or like what is it, 500 or 300 meters, like quite a bit of height was
Yeah,
lost on
a
that, right?
lot.
Okay, so the KT line impact was supposedly happened before that.
Yeah, way before that, millions of years ago.
Right, and then so like just I think it's kind of like human beings are gonna, especially at that time, more. What do I know? But a lot of people lived on those shorelines. Some people escaped basically, and migrated north, like away from the shorelines because the sea level was rising.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you wouldn't be. We say, oh, we don't find any human remains below the KT line in the point whatever percentage of places they've actually searched. But so it could be on our level right now, but there's no way we could look for that now because it would basically all be underwater, right? And so it is possible that, like, in the same way that you have like prehistoric animals that existed, like an alligator, for instance, or and other things, like human beings could do. We like, as far as evolution, like coming from like a chimpanzee type of thing into whatever it was that we were, 500,000, close to a million years ago or whatever, would be basically essentially what we are now. And it's not like that we like morphed into what we are now from some other thing necessarily, even though there are multiple like versions of humans, I guess, like Australopithecus and Homo.
Well, those weren't humans, but they come before
I
humans.
don't think so, right? But I don't think so. In the same way that it's like, because so I've heard people who, and like, I'm just saying this is just theoretical. I don't know anything. I'm not trying to like disrespect anyone who doesn't believe that evolution could have a different story than what we've been taught. But I've heard them say like, well, we share this much DNA with, chimps or whatever, but we also share DNA with cats and dogs and rats and all these other things and rabbits. And they use these sort of things in like experiments, especially like rabbits, because of that part of the DNA that we share. Like, there's things that they make these connections with, like, oh, like dog's man's best friend, we share this much DNA with him and like all these things. But life just shares certain types of DNA, I think is what it is. It's not like, this is human DNA and this isn't. And if you have this human DNA, oh, where did that come from? It's just like in the mixture of all these different life. And, sometimes, like a cat or a dog or a rat or a mouse, or, chimps are going to have the similar type of DNA, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything as far as like evolution is concerned.
Okay. Do you think evolution is true?
I don't know either way. I'm just thinking about like, it could be like, maybe it's not true. Maybe it is that, like we were just, whatever simian type of thing that we were, could have, like potentially like more hairy and everything, but I don't think we were like apes and like animalistic necessarily. And like, maybe we could talk, but the only reason that we couldn't have full on conversations is because, all the predators and, raptors or whatever dinosaurs would have existed. Like we were getting eaten by everything. And so there was no remnants, and then the KT thing happened and, we're around, but, we lived by the water and then the water rose. And then, so the people who are archaeologists and everything who are looking for stuff now are like through no fault of their own looking in the wrong place. Theoretically.
I don't know what to do with that.
I mean, I don't smoke marijuana or anything, but I feel like that's like a thought. But I don't know. I just had to get that out of my brain, I guess. I don't necessarily need like a response to that, but those are just crazy thoughts.
There's really good books on human evolution out there if you want to take a look at them.
I mean, yeah, I could do that. I have friends who would like totally just pick apart everything I said and like we'd have it out for, until they were sick of the conversation or whatever, who disagree with me coming up with these ideas or notions out of nowhere. So yeah, I'm not like a anti-evolutionist at all, or even with the physics thing. It's just like ran through my head, like, like like a black hole. Like there are people who think of a black hole. Oh, there could be a universe. I saw this article the other day, and the guy or whoever, the person who wrote this thing, was saying that, could there be there? I guess there are people who who went to school who think that potentially like the solar system that we're in or our universe could be inside of a black hole. And it's like a black
Right.
hole is literally just a star that is caked up with so much debris that it supersedes like the event horizon to me. And it's like, no, it's not. It's never going to be that. It's a star that's coated. That's what I think it is. And the reason that like you see the
Coated.
light the way it does is because the temperature is so low that it causes like the photons and the waves and everything to act differently because it's under a different temperature. Like there are these German scientists.
No, we know how black holes form. It's not a temperature thing. No.
No. I'm not saying that the temperature is like the temperature causes the black hole, but once you have a star that's coated in so much debris that it basically breaks the event horizon and like you can kind of see like this halo and everything around it. And instead of the light still, because it's still light, it should be like protruding out in all like omnidirectionally, right? But these German scientists did this experiment where they took a tube and they dropped hydrogen gas down this refrigerated tube or whatever, and they basically got the coldest recorded temperature on Earth, which is like it was like a negative 200 and something. I can't remember if they used Celsius or Fahrenheit, but it was like very close to absolute zero, like not breaking absolute zero, but like within like 80 degrees or something like that, like something, or like 100 degrees.
No, we can get to within like a millionth of a degree of absolute zero with freaking lasers.
Right. Well, this is an older study, but what I took from that, because they made an observation that light was acting within this tube as if it would if it could be poured into a glass, basically, right? And like they were. I think that what they were doing, like I don't want to speak for them, but I think what they were doing, where they were like, oh, well, the temperature like has some sort of autonomy over light at like extremely low temperatures, right? And so if that's the case inside of this tube, I feel like that would be the case inside of a solar system that, like if the sun was all of a sudden coated in all this material that would, break the event horizon, would basically essentially be what we look out with telescopes and equipment and see a black hole, like that temperature is going to drop within, the parameters of that solar system. So like we wouldn't be able to get the radiation that makes heat for us here on Earth. So like that would basically happen ubiquitously, like in every direction where the sun is, right? And so, which would make that same sort of reaction that the German scientists observed inside of the tube with the light. So the light's not going out in all directions because the temperature has dropped down so low. And, now that area of that solar system is susceptible to like much lower temperatures than it would be if it wasn't a covered sun. And so you would get the effects that you see with the light. So crudely put, but yeah.
All right.
All right. And thanks for listening. I'm going to drop down now. I'm sure there's somebody who's got something better to talk about than me, but yeah, thanks for having me.
Later.